This week I'm looking at World War II food fakery. We all know that during World War II, food was heavily restricted by rationing. And the Ministry of Food would issue leaflets with recipes to help people try and make the most out of what they had. Some people would even turn to foraging, some people turned to the black market, but many cooks started getting creative and just making mock versions of their favourite fruit from before the war based on whatever they had around. I've seen mock black pudding using beetroot, mock mayonnaise using potato and margarine, mock banana using parsnip, mock apricot jam using carrot. But the thing I really got curious about was mock duck. To recreate mock duck, you need sausage meat, we need onions, cooking apples, and sage. So the recipe for mock duck is really interesting. It essentially tells us to spread a layer of sausage meat, top it with grated apple, chopped sage, chopped onion, put the remaining sausage meat over the top of it, and I quote, fashion it into the shape of a duck. So I guess today we're exploring my troubled relationship with arts and crafts again. Okay, so let's get going. So I'm gonna start off with chopping our onion. In itself, this is pretty interesting. They actually became incredibly rare during the war. Before World War II, we never actually had much need to grow them. We just relied on them from international imports. But German U-boats were having their effect on trade, and onions didn't turn out to be very high on the list of priorities. So the Dig for Victory campaign that the government ran actually encouraged gardeners to grow onions at home, and they became incredibly valuable. I actually read about a raffle that the Times newspaper held in 1941. They raffled off a single onion, which raised a prize total of just over £4, which is the equivalent of 163 quid today. I never thought an onion would make my eyes water for that reason. Gonna put these in a bowl, leave them to one side. Next step, we're gonna grate the apples. So the apple peel was actually really valuable during World War II, when, again, so many things are either completely unavailable or subject to rationing. Thrifty cooks would actually take apple peel, boil it in water, and then use that as an alternative for lemon juice or for pectin with making jam. Grated apple, check. Sage time. I'm guessing this is really what transforms this into tasting like duck. Duck assembly time. The recipe for mock duck tells you to start layering out sausage meat as a base layer. It feels a bit disingenuous doing this part because this is 100% pure sausage meat. They would not have that during World War II. So during the war, the government actually passed a regulation to ensure that sausages had to have at least 10% meat in them, which is a really weird thing if you think you have to stipulate that. The rest would have been anything, porridge oats, breadcrumbs. I've even heard about mashed potato previously. This dish would also be a real extravagance, purely because when sausages came onto the ration list in 1943, the weekly allowance per person at that point was 8 ounces, which is 227 grams, the internet's telling me. This is about 6 times that. This is a real indulgence. Gonna take our nice rare onions. Next, a nice layer of grated apple. The recipe actually says if they're a bit tart, then you can add some sugar to them, but I don't want to use up my sugar ration. And lastly, some of our chopped sage. At this point, the recipe now tells us to layer on the rest of the sausage meat and try to shape it into a duck. So once again, I'm going to be faced with my lack of ability in arts and crafts. Come on, I want this to look special. This is our ration allowance for several weeks. I've gone out and I've got into debt with a loan shark to get some onions on the black market. There's a lot riding on this. If you ask me, I think that is unrecognisable. Can you honestly tell me there's any difference between this and this?
Well, I've just stood up and seen how tragic that is.
Stop picking holes in my efforts. You said make it head rounder. I'm trying to make the head rounder. I think we can safely say these are basically identical. Yep, I'm happy with my life choices at this point. Let's give this guy a holiday. The recipe tells us to cook it for about 45-50 minutes, but I want to be safe, so I'm going to stick a meat thermometer in, gently up a jacksie. So I'm going to give that about 50 minutes, and then we'll see what happens. So now we've roasted our mock duck for 50 minutes, and we are greeted with this. I really think that we need a control group though, just to make sure that this does taste like duck. So here's one I prepared earlier. I actually can't tell which is which, it's so beautiful. The resemblance is pretty uncanny, I think we can all agree. By no stretch of the imagination is this duck. I don't need to try it to know this isn't going to taste like duck, but you know, at a time where rationing has probably sapped a lot of the joy out of food, it's just a form of giving yourself a bit of a treat. It's a bit of kind of culinary escapism, isn't it? All right, I want to try our mock duck. Let's try our first bite of duck here. It's delicious. And it's delicious because it basically tastes like Christmas stuffing. I don't think that even with your eyes closed, you would think this is duck. The whole concept behind rationing was after World War I, research came out that most of the country is pretty malnourished. So the government invested a lot of work to try and get it right this time. And people just went with it. They brought their creativity. They thought, okay, this is gonna suck, but Let's try and find the joy. And this is it. This kind of makes me smile. It's ridiculous and it's ludicrous, it's silly, but it manages to put a smile on your face, which is, I imagine, what they really needed. I'm gonna try the control group now. I just wanna make sure that we're being scientifically accurate. There is no similarity despite the uncanny resemblance. In the absence of an actual duck during war, I think this would have still put a smile on your face.